Hello, I'm Regina McCann Hess, President of Forge Wealth Management, and welcome to our Women in Wealth series. Today, I have a new friend with me. And Dorothy, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Regina. Uh, I am publisher and CEO of Rethinking65. Our company is a digital media company, and we publish the website rethinking65.com. The website is basically for financial advisors who are helping clients 50 and older develop a plan that for the second half of their lives that's going to be purposeful and meaningful and encompass a lot of different concerns and issues that advisors are more and more helping clients navigate.
Wow. And it is powerful. It's so powerful. And I went to your website, I was checking it out. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know it was here. And I'm so glad I found it. Now it's going to be like my go-to. And I was thinking I would share it with my clients, but actually it sounds more like I would be sharing it with my fellow financial advisors and letting them have access to such great knowledge too.
Yeah, it's funny. We do target advisors, but a lot of individuals have told us. In fact, a lot of my family, friends, and other people I know have found the articles them really helpful themselves. Most of the content on the website is written by advisors. We do have professional journalists writing some of the content also, but we've had more than 100 advisors contribute to the site since we launched it.
Wow, that's impressive. That is impressive. Now, how do you get out there, like, and get yourself known and, really get into the community, I guess you could say?
Well, for me, I've worked for Financial Advisor magazine and actually helped launch it. It was for 20 years that I was there, and I also was director of their Invest in Women conference. So over 20 years, I really built a lot of networking among advisors and developed a lot of contacts, and so that really helped because I already knew a lot of people. And then my partner, Geraldine Klein, who is the editorial director, she was a writer for Financial Advisor magazine, so she also had a lot of contacts. And we basically got started by reaching out to the people we knew and told them what we were doing. We got a great reception from advisors, feeling like they wanted to have more conversation around the idea of longevity and what does that mean? It's not the retirement that our parents had. People are living longer, they're healthier, but yet you still have to deal with a lot of things as you get older that are different than when you're younger. It's another stage of life, but there's not been the same focus on the different aspects of being older and the advantages and the challenges that you face and how you can basically approach life and still be optimistic about it.
Yeah, for sure. And as a matter of fact, I think you and I we're like on the same wavelength because I think about those things all the time, but only because I've been working with my clients for so long and I see the phases that they go through. Like most people, when they go into retirement, they're thinking about the go-go years. Like, oh, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there, I'm going to go this place. But what they don't think about later on, and rightfully so, because they haven't experienced it, but uh, who am I going to have lunch with? Who's going to change the light bulbs? And those come back to isolation, having friends, having things to do with people, and then getting to the point where you're no longer able to climb up on an 8-foot ladder or a 12-foot ladder. Well, you might be able to, but maybe you
Who
shouldn't.
wants to?
You so those are great conversations to have with people, and so that they can plan ahead for those types of for those phases of the retirement. It's like
Well,
what go, slow go, no go,
right.
those phases.
I mean, one of the things that's changed a lot too, because people are living longer, there are a lot of people on the younger end, saying 50 or even 60, who are finding themselves very involved in the care of their own parents.
Absolutely.
So that's a huge shift. And more people who I talk to are involved with that. And especially now with COVID, people are looking at they're looking at long-term care a lot differently than they did before. So I think we're going to keep seeing this sort of trend continuing as another aspect of what's part of people's lives as they get older. At the same time, people have had children later in life. So it's not unusual for someone who's 60 to have a child in college. And, you have to balance educational demands with retirement demands, savings or whatever. So there's all kinds of things that have been changing. Plus, a lot of people, in spite of the fact that a lot of people have left the workforce and retired during COVID, people still are trying to come up with ways. Maybe they don't want to work the way they did for the first 35 or 40 years of their lives, but a lot of people still want to be active, especially the clients of financial advisors, because a lot of those people often have had jobs that are less demanding physically. They were working in an office, or they were working as part of a team somewhere. They weren't, building houses, most of them. So a lot of the skills that they've built up through their lifetimes, they're still certainly able to use if they, can find the right fit that works for them. A lot of people don't want to work at the same, they may not want to put in 60-hour weeks, but they're still, especially in the early years, they're interested
Yeah.
in continuing to work, sometimes financial, but a lot of times just for satisfaction.
Right. And that's the best option for anyone to have is I'm working because I want to work, not because I have to
Exactly.
work. And that gives people a lot of like independence and also power, gives them a lot of power. You hit on so many key things about the retirement realm. Oh my gosh. Every time you say something, I'm like, oh yeah, that and that, you're like right on the money with everything. It's so cool that you're spending so much time in this arena. And I agree with you. A lot of people, the people who are retiring now are seeing retirement differently than, say my mom when she retired,
Exactly.
you
Well,
know,
especially our mothers.
yes, yes. And then women live longer too. So they have to think, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to live longer in general. That also means my money has to last longer as well.
Absolutely.
So that's a little scary. And then with people retiring, and working, like they don't want to just retire. They want to do something, whether or not it's in their field or something totally different, whether
Right.
or not it's nonprofit or working. So that's really a neat phenomenon that we're seeing as well. And then some people, like I swear that my retirees are busier when they're retired than when they're working, because then they now have time to do all the things they wanted to do all those years but couldn't do it because they were working full time.
Yeah, I agree. People often end up with, if they're busy to begin with, and even though they're retired, they may get involved in, as you say, new things, volunteering efforts, or, their families will, they're more available, so they get more involved that way. So I think a lot of times for people, though, It depends on the person, but some people think about it more than others and kind of have a better idea of what they might do. And then there are still a lot of people who, get to this part of their lives and they're not really sure where they're going because it's all new and different, really.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's something they've never experienced before. I actually know 2 coaches who literally that's what they focus on. They focus on
Right.
coaching people through that phase of their life. What are they gonna do on the other side of retirement? Do they do if they don't want a, sedentary lifestyle, what do they wanna do? What kind of impact do they wanna have now that they can? And how does that look? So and to have that kind of coaching is kind of neat. Like I never would have thought that somebody needed that, but there's a lot of people who are driven people and they don't just want to melt into the background when they retire. They need
Exactly.
something to keep them going. And it also helps keep engaging our minds, which is also helpful.
Right. No, that's
Mhm.
definitely true. I've interviewed a few coaches recently, in fact, because that's become a lot of the conversation around retirement, helping people trying to figure out what they might do. And uh, it ties into what advisors do, because if you're trying to figure out what you want to do, you have to figure out if you have the money to do it and how that's going to help or affect your financial situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's definitely a big thing, and it's interesting about this part of life too, because when when you're just starting out, things kind of, it's a little more, you kind of have a little better idea. A lot of people do, not everyone when they're young, but you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, maybe you have, maybe you get married, or even if you don't get married, maybe you might have a child or two. Then you're spending a lot of time, raising the children and working and doing all those things at the same time. And then, you're over 50, and now what's next, like because people are living longer. I think you're going to see a big reinvention of what it's like to live in these later years of life, because there are a lot more options and there's a lot more discussion about it than I think there has ever been before.
And that's fabulous that there is. I think that's a great conversation to have. Good for people to do that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think for women too, there are a lot of things where, they are thinking, men and women both have some similar issues, but women, as you mentioned earlier, do tend to live longer, and more women do face losing a spouse, and that's a big transition in and of itself.
Mhm.
And just keeping those connections that you mentioned. Advisors can be really critical in helping people think through things and being a connection for their clients.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. We do try for sure to be that link for people, for sure. So if someone like so I'd love for you to mention your website again, how people find it. What's it called?
It's
Retire?
rethinking65.com, and you can find it. It's the word rethinking with the number 65 and a period com. And if you check out the website, I think you'll find some really interesting stories about all the things that we're talking about right here. You can read the perspective of advisors on how they've helped clients with different issues. And there are also other experts who contribute to the content. And it's kind of a different kind of a website in the sense that what its focus is, and what we, hope to do is, continue to expand our advisor audience, as well as, for those individuals who are interested. It's certainly not so technical that individuals couldn't enjoy it as well.
And that's the best way to reach out to you, through the website? They can find you through there and
Oh,
learn everything they
absolutely.
need to.
Well,
Okay, that's
and
great.
my email address is my name, my first initial and my last name, D Hinchcliff at rethinking65.com. So,
Perfect. You made it easy.
yeah, thank you.
Made it easy. So now you have had a fabulous career, and as a fellow professional woman, I'm always curious, what were some of the challenges that you faced as a professional woman in your career?
Well, I think, in the beginning, there certainly wasn't there was support, but I think there's more support today than there was then. Certainly when I started as a journalist, and, there were a lot of women then in the field too. I became interested in business journalism, and there were fewer women even then that focused on business.
Yeah.
I think probably I had a lot of the same challenges that, a lot of women do. You end up in the point, I think, when you start nowadays, you start thinking about, you're going to have a family, how you're going to make that work. But I think there's certainly a lot of support to be able to do that nowadays. It's just kind of trying to balance everything. And in some ways, I think now the way things have gone, maybe a little bit of an upside from COVID's all the negatives that came from it, is the flexibility that it's created in the workplace. And I think that's not just helpful to women. I do think it's helpful to men too, but I think it can be helpful, to balancing things. It didn't work so great during COVID because people weren't ready for it. And to have your
Yeah.
kids home and having to
Oh,
educate at the same time was way too much for so many people. But I think in the long run, I think that flexibility, that like almost happened overnight, because before that, I don't know if you found this, Regina, but I mean, there was some flexibility, but people just didn't even think about everybody working at home like 2 days a
no,
week or whatever.
no, not at all. Not
And
at all. And
and Zoom was in existence before, but not that many people used it.
never before the pandemic did I use Zoom. I mean,
See?
we did some meetings like that, but not with our clients. Like, they were invited meetings where we were invited and we didn't do anything. We just showed up. But yeah, the pandemic has definitely changed our work style, our lifestyle, and some definite positives came out of it for sure, which is always good to look for the positives.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
That's good. That's good. And then how about, I know you're really involved in the Rethinking 65. But let's say go in a time machine. What's your vision of retirement for yourself?
well, I'd like to be able to keep working. Uh, I want to do a lot of the things that a lot of people I know want to do, and that is have the flexibility to not be tied into an office, but be able to, continue to build our business and, travel, I guess, somewhat. But really, I think it's about having a purpose. And at least for now, I would like to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, what I've started doing, which is really only, in the last year and a half. So this is sort of a new venture for me. I've been involved in startups before. So that part of it isn't new, but, doing it in this kind of an environment is a little different because, as I said, getting back to the whole thing of the workplace, this wasn't even thought of even 10 years ago, to be able to put something together. I mean, there were a handful of people, but very few people were doing things like this. And I think it's going to provide a lot more options for people to work longer.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is a good thing for a lot of people, especially people who want to.
Yeah.
So I think retirement's going to look a lot different as time goes on, because, and the whole word retirement is probably going to be retired, because
it's true.
I know, because we say retirement, but really what we're talking about is the second half of your life, and when you're really thinking about doing something different. And for some people that might be, not working at the kind of job they worked at for all those early years. But for other people, it might be starting a different career. It might be, for some people, it might be continuing to work in their career. I mean, and for other people, it might be the traditional view of, buying the house in Florida and, going to the beach 3 days a week and, socializing,
Right. And I ask everyone this question, it's fun because everyone has a different answer. It's their own vision, right? And I still get like, I definitely want to be somewhere warm. No matter what I'm doing, I want to be somewhere warm. But
right.
I get a variety of answers, which is really cool. So, you see people are thinking differently for sure.
Definitely. It's everybody has so many, it's, the way people's lives are is so, they've had so much more choice than like my parents had, or they wouldn't have even thought about it, doing it differently.
No, it wasn't even thought of, not even an
No.
option. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Well, I love what you're doing with the site. I am going to
Thank
tell a
you.
lot of my advisor friends about it. I have a great group of financial advisors that I'm pretty close with that will love to go visit your site. So I'll tell them all about it. So thank you for sharing that with us today. And thank you for being on our show. We really appreciate your time.
Well, it was a pleasure. It was really nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Always welcome. And I want to thank our listeners. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm Regina McCann Hess, president of Forge Wealth Management. Our website is forgewealth.com, and social media, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Forge Wealth, and on LinkedIn, Regina McCann Hess. Make it a great day. Thanks.